And Ani, you come at this, from a very different perspective, with such a large membership organization, and the fact that you're also developing so many new products all the time too. So, you want to talk to us about your relationships with your internal publishing relationships and your relationships with your members. I'm assuming that your members are your largest stakeholders as well too.
Our model actually for scientific publishing is actually somewhat different from, I would say, other publishing venues and avenues for publishing, in that our biggest customers are actually the libraries. So if you even at this organization, if you go to a school or a university now, and back when I was in school in the late 90s and in grad school after 2000, what I started seeing is that you could go and you could start to pick up journals. They were actually print versions of journals, and you would look at them for your research articles or whatever your projects that you were doing. When I was still in grad school, they started going away. So we started going digital at that point. I mean, for us, we've been making the transition from 1996. Yeah.
So very early on.
So very early on. But our main customer base is actually institutional libraries, institutional subscribers, and I would say that right now it's mostly emerging markets, like the U.S. Within the U.S. and in my region, in my area of expertise, pharmaceutical industries, we map very closely with how much they're funding, what their funding situation is, how well the NIH is funding, the NSF, the NIH, and other government agencies are funding, how much the budgets are for libraries. So you have these huge consortia that are buying packages of content from us. But then you also have like the rise of the BRICS, and they're trying to get ahead, and with their GDP growth of 8% and 10%, they're trying to buy our content. So I would say that we have our members. Our members get one of our magazines, which is Chemical and Engineering News. That's editorially independent. That's our news magazine. But for our scientific peer review content, I didn't bring a print issue because I don't know, Rochelle, and I don't even know what they look like. I haven't seen one. I
went away one day, and Ani was looking for a printer.
That's true.
And
it's anecdotal, but it is true.
Where are you?
I was on the phone. I was looking.
Where's
I needed to bind a print issue, and I didn't know where we could find one. So essentially, we're selling. We call them journals. They're tied into the model that we have, but we're selling packets of information as articles primarily to institutional subscribers. You can buy them individually, and some people do, but that's generally not the case. So those are sort of the external. So libraries, I would say, one, the authors themselves, who that's another stakeholder. The editors who actually accept and reject some manuscripts. So we have all of our journals, scientific journals, have a rejection rate. So they reject manuscripts, and we have this other, I don't know how familiar you are, but we have this other metric, which is like the impact factor, which everyone is really, really concerned about. So I would say those are the external stakeholders. Internal, I think is the same as other business units and organizations. We have production and sales and marketing and editorial development. So, but our business is somewhat different in that we don't have as many purchasers. So, but we have the ones we have. They are the accounts we have are very, very large. So.
And Steve, again, you have a very different model. I would assume that one of your most important stakeholders are your readers and your advertisers for City and Region.
Yes. I guess I could spend some time trying to think of others, but those are 99% of it. And my relationship with them has changed so much since working at a large consumer magazine. Working at the Atlantic, there were 500,000 subscribers, so you can't really get to know the subscribers. And we did a lot of focus groups, but the focus groups, the editor at the time, Michael Kelly, was convinced based on the focus group that all the people who read the Atlantic were shut-ins who each owned 16 cats based on what you saw in focus groups. And also traveling around the country with our advertising account executives. We'd be calling on 26-year-old, no offense to 26-year-olds, media planners in San Francisco at an ad agency who thought the Atlantic was an ocean off the East Coast, if they knew that. And so it was not a very intimate relationship. And what's changed now in publishing, a relatively small town, magazine, is that both for our readers and advertisers, these are people I know personally. I hear from our readers constantly. I see them in the street. I hear from them. They call me. They email me. We do a lot of. We have booths at a lot of street festivals and Taste of Bethesda, and Clarendon Days and things like that. And people are constantly coming up and providing feedback, and it's both hugely useful and often very rewarding. And with advertisers, mostly we're not dealing with ad agencies. We're dealing with small and medium-sized business, and most of the time we're dealing with the owners of that business. And sometimes that's a very frustrating thing because they're not as generally as sophisticated when it comes to marketing, but also it's a more intimate thing, and you really get to know them on a personal basis, and it's a very rewarding thing.
And please feel free to interrupt if you have a question you want to ask about this particular subject. We're trying to make this very informal. We've talked a little bit around everybody's digital integration plans and strategy, and we have another question from one of our online students from Callie Combs, and I thought this would be a really good way to sort of launch the digital discussion. And so her question is, do you think of print and digital offerings as one, or are you adopting a different mindset, teams, and ideas for both as separate beings? How do you make it so that both, while two entities, still inform and advance the others? So, who wants to take that?
Well, I'll take it on at least to start. I have a pretty aggressive view on this, and we separate the teams for the most part, digital and print, and I think that's been our success. And I'm a big fan of Clayton Christensen's disruption theory. And if you study what he says, 91% of companies fail, and the reason that they fail is because new technologies enter a marketplace, and many companies don't actually embrace bringing the right skills to do it. And so, I think our approach is driven from that, where we're not trying to take folks who work on the print magazine, and put them into digital. We built an entirely different team, and let the magazine folks do what they do. And it's really with the production team now where I'm giving them a chance to learn a little digital, but that's really not been our mantra because I just don't think it works. To be blunt, and I look at Condé Nast and others who are trying to straddle, and they're not doing a great job. And so I think it's just a vastly different platform, and it's really hard to kind of retrain people with something so different. So that's been sort of our view, at least since I've been there at the Atlantic. And so we've built up to, both are doing very well, but with different people for the most part. So.
And Nicole, I think your experience is a little bit different.
Yeah, it's quite different because I really didn't have much of a choice with the small size that I have. So my winnowing out, because I do agree, I think it is hard to have people transition, but we did a few different things. Anybody who didn't really want to get on and understand CM content management systems and embrace the online world and the digital technology, they don't work for me anymore. So really that simple. And the ones that did, I tried to give them all the tools, and I hire outside consultants to give me that kind of expertise that I need that I don't have on my staff, and I certainly don't know. But it's remarkable how well people, I guess there's nothing clear as mine like no alternative. You're going to learn it if you're going to keep your job. But I think you have to have a passion for it, and hiring people who, I have what I call e-staff. They're external staff, electronic staff, and I'm one of them. And really, I only have 2 people left here in my Virginia office, and everybody else, I've just let them go wherever they go. I've got an editor in Denver. My production team is here, production and designer, but they're all over the place. And wherever I found somebody who was really good, I just let them, they said, Nicole, I'm moving over here. And I said, fine, that's fine. And I don't care when you work. We are all deadline driven. You have to get the work done. And if you're texting and tweeting and uploading stuff to the CMS at 3 in the morning, I really don't care. Just as long as you get it done. And So that's, it's a sort of a whole mind shift of structure. I mean, my boss still comes, from a military background, and he was very hierarchical, and all these things have changed dramatically. And I think that's what it has to be with all these various platforms and things that are going on. But our production person, we were all old school print. And I started saying to them, I don't want to hear the word editorial. I don't want to hear the word magazine. I don't want to hear the word print. And that was probably 4 years ago. We're going to talk content. We're going to talk platforms. We're going to talk media. And we don't, and they were all like, oh, come on, Nicole. I said, no, seriously. Don't say you're an editor. Don't say you're content. It's content. And we're still, all of our revenue, most of our revenue, it's not true. The majority still comes from print, but those are the industries we serve. We're in construction. But you'd be surprised, a lot of them are out there. Yes?
Andy?
We start the end of the question I would ask all of you, if you don't mind all answering. We are all here because this is a strategic career move for us. And I would love to hear what sort of skills and tools you are seeing as being the most valuable in the next 10 years, or even the next 2.
Well, I would say technical, computer skills for sure, and learning the latest technology in design. Like we shifted from Quark to InDesign. That was a big hurdle for my team, my little team. And I said, I'm going to get you the coursework. You just go out there, you learn it. And we have to do that as we're fulfilling deadlines. So I think you really want to be an expert in all those things. You want to know HTML if you don't know it. I mean, we're trying to transition to responsive design websites. Again, I'm going to try to build a platform that they can use pretty easily, that we can afford. But I would say, everything you do in your personal life, what you're looking at, if you're on Instagram, whatever you're doing, tell your boss about it. Because some of my editors were, in their early 20s, and they came to me and they said, Nicole, like, we really ought to be tweeting, and I was like, well, okay. And I learned how to do it, and we all have to learn. We have to keep learning, and just push yourself to the limit, and come up with new ideas and new ways of making money. That's how you're really going to help your boss. How is tweeting going to get me, to my budget lines? Well, if you integrate tweeting with the website and you bring it into an event and you say, hey, we can do this, or we can repackage content and we can sell it. I mean, anything like that. If you find yourself coming up with even in production, my production manager or director, Beth, I mean, she's saying, Nicole, I really think we ought to do this, and I listen to everything and anything. Doesn't mean we do it all, but that would be my advice.
I still think there are a lot of publishing companies still where the people at the helm are my age or come from another generation of publishing. And I'm saying this because the person who is our entire department is sitting right here, Emma. And it gives someone in your age just a huge advantage. And Emma, outside, is young like all of you. Outside of her years of experience, we rely on her hugely because she knows so much about this new world and has so many tools at her disposal. And so I think it's actually a great time for all of you, if you have this broad experience with so many of these new technologies and new tools, to have sort of outsized influence early in your career, because there's still a lot of people who are eager to, by necessity, have to be in this new world, but don't have the skills or experience to get there without help from people